11th standard. Here we are discussing with our basic topics. Actually, it is the recapitulation of several endocrine structures. We are dealing with endocrinology, and today's the main topic of concern will be our pituitary gland. We have studied pituitary gland in our offline batch, so we will continue its recapitulation here also. Let us assume this be our central nervous system. When I say central nervous system, here I mean brain and I mean spinal cord. These two structures form our central nervous system. And in a brain, actually there are three parts. One is called forebrain. When we study brain in class 9th or 10th, their teacher tells us that brain has actually three parts: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. And the names include prosencephalon, mesencephalon, and rhomencephalon. As far as this forebrain is concerned, forebrain contains a special region that we call diencephalon. Forebrain contains a special region that we call diencephalon. Here, let us assume this portion be the diencephalon. Actually, the diencephalon is composed of three parts. One part is known as thalamus. Second part is known as epithalamus. And the third part is known as hypothalamus. Let me draw here. Let us assume this region be the thalamus here in the diagram. Above thalamus there is another region. This is epithalamus, and below here it is epithalamus, here second portion is thalamus, and attached with the thalamus is the third structure. That third structure we call hypothalamus. Here first structure is epithalamus, second is thalamus, third is hypothalamus. Epithalamus, thalamus, and hypothalamus. These three structures form our diencephalon. Along with the hypothalamus, there is a special stalk. This stalk is known as infundibulum. Infundibulum. Attached with this infundibulum is a rounded structure, a P-shaped structure. This P-shaped structure is actually your pituitary gland. It is your pituitary gland. It is this pituitary gland that is also known as hypophysis. So should we say this first point, that in our forebrain there is a special area. That special area is known as diencephalon. Diencephalon is composed of three areas. Prosencephalon. Diencephalon is made of three areas: epithalamus, thalamus, and hypothalamus. It is this hypothalamus that has a special tube-like structure or stalk-like structure or pipe-like structure. That stalk is known as infundibulum. This stalk here. Or infundibulum is also known as pituitary stalk. Infundibulum is also known as pituitary stalk. Along with this pituitary stalk, there is attached a very, very small, usually half gram, with a diameter of 1.3 centimeter. Pea-seed shaped gland. Pea-seed shaped gland. This pea-seed shaped gland is actually known as your pituitary gland or hypophysis. It is this seed-shaped gland or hypophysis or pituitary gland, that is actually located in one of the special bones here at this area. Let us suppose this portion be my forebrain, as whole forebrain. This forebrain contains a special area. That special area is known as diencephalon. This diencephalon contains a special region called hypothalamus. This hypothalamus contains a stalk. That stalk is known as infundibulum. Attached with this infundibulum is a rounded structure. That rounded structure is known as pituitary gland. That is actually an endocrine gland. Now, the original location of pituitary gland is there is a special bone. There is a special bone in my suckle. That bone is actually known as sphenoid bone. It is this sphenoid bone in my suckle that has a special depression. This sphenoid bone has a special depression, and this depression is known as silla turcica. It is this depression, silla turcica, where pituitary gland is located. It is this silla turcica that houses your pituitary gland. Now, first point is dimensions of pituitary gland. Second point is the location of the pituitary gland. Now, the third point. As far as the pituitary gland is concerned, today I am having flu-like symptoms, so the pace is slow. Hope you understand. Let us suppose this be the hypothalamus now. This is the stalk, pituitary stalk, and this is pituitary gland. This pituitary gland is actually divided into two portions. This pituitary gland is actually divided into two portions. The first portion is known as anterior lobe of pituitary gland. The second portion is known as posterior lobe of pituitary gland. Anterior lobe of pituitary gland is known as adenohypophysis. The posterior lobe of pituitary gland is known as neurohypophysis. It is this adenohypophysis that forms actually the 75% of whole pituitary gland, and rest posterior lobe of pituitary gland, or you call neurohypophysis, contains just 25% of pituitary gland. And this anterior lobe of pituitary gland that actually contains two parts. This is the first part, this is the second part. Anterior lobe of pituitary gland contains two parts. The first part is called parus distalis. The second part is known as parus nervosa. Parus intermedia. Or in some traditional books it is written intermediate lobe of pituitary gland. So what I said till now is that anterior lobe of pituitary gland, also known as adenohypophysis, is actually composed of two parts. This is the first part that you call parus distalis. This is the second part that you call parus intermedia. And both these lobes, this part and this part, forms your anterior lobe of pituitary gland, like this. Now, This part is also known as pars nervosa, neurohypophysis or pars nervosa. Pars nervosa. Now, next point. Now the third point. First point is the what actually diencephalon means. Second point that I delivered is what is scylla turcica, a depression in the sphenoid bone. The third point is divisions of the pituitary gland, that is the anterior lobe pituitary gland, posterior lobe pituitary gland, and anterior lobe further bifurcated into pars distalis and pars intermedia, and the posterior lobe also known as neurohypophysis or pars nervosa. Hope this much understood by you people. Now the next point. Now the matter of concern is that how is hypothalamus attached with pituitary gland? What are the actual anatomical connections that link our hypothalamus with the pituitary gland? What are actual connections of pituitary gland and hypothalamus? Let me make you aware. First of all, you should understand that hypothalamus is a part of brain because it is studied in diencephalon. It also has endocrine functions, but that will be taught in next lecture. Right now, what you have to take under consideration is that hypothalamus receives blood supply. Hypothalamus receives blood supply. Oxygenated blood supply from special types of arteries. One is called superior hypothalamic artery, and second is known as inferior hypothalamic artery. These arteries supply or these arteries drain the hypothalamus. What actually happens is that you people are already aware of the fact, we have studied it in our offline batches, that if it is an artery, this artery divides into smaller pipes that you call arterioles. Arterioles again divide into smaller pipes. These pipes are called capillaries. These capillaries then join together and form venules, and the venules then again join together and form vein. You have studied it in this class that if it is an artery, this artery divides into smaller pipes called arterioles. Arterioles then again divide into smaller capillaries, and it is these capillaries that then unite. These capillaries then unite and form venules. This is a venule, and venules unite to form vein. What actually happens is that when the arteries bring blood, oxygenated blood to the hypothalamus, it is these arteries, those divide into arterioles, obviously. And what will happen is that these arterioles will again divide into capillaries. Hypothalamic artery divides into arterioles, like here. Arteriole will divide into capillaries. Now what will happen is that these capillaries will unite to form venules or veins. These capillaries will unite to form venules. These capillaries will unite to form venules. And these venules will unite to form vein. Here, artery divides into arteriole divides into capillary unites to form venules unite to form vein. Same is the case here. Artery divides into arteriole, hypothalamic artery divides into arteriole divides into capillary, capillaries, then capillaries unite to form venulus, and venulus unite to form vein. So these veins, finally यहाँ से भी, these veins then enter into the pituitary gland. What actually happens is that vein takes the blood back to heart. What actually happens is that vein takes the blood back to heart. But if this vein does not take this blood back to heart, instead, if this vein enters into another organ, if this vein does not take its blood back to the heart in a normal fashion, what happens is that if the vein takes its blood to different organ, here is the vein, this vein takes blood from hypothalamus to pituitary gland. That too you should remember, especially to anterior lobe of pituitary gland. This is the anterior lobe of pituitary gland, this is the posterior lobe of pituitary gland. When the vein does not take its blood back to our heart, but instead of taking blood to heart, it is this vein that takes blood to another structure of our body. So, such vein you call portal vein. It is this portal vein that does not initially take its blood to the heart, but instead of taking blood to heart, it takes blood to another organ or another structure of our body. Here, hypothalamus is drained by arteries. You know that arteries divide into arterioles, arterioles divide into capillaries, capillaries unite to form venulus, venulus unite to form vein, and it is the vein that takes blood back to your heart. But if the vein does not take its blood back to heart, then vein takes blood to another different structure. That vein is then called portal vein. Like you have studied in class 10th, hepatic portal vein, renal portal vein. Same is the case here. What I said right now is that these hypothalamic veins do not take blood to heart, but they take blood to pituitary gland. So should I say these are the portal veins? These are the portal veins. Sir, these portal veins innervate the pituitary gland. When I say innervate, I mean enter into the pituitary gland. What I said right now, please be focused. This is an important concept that you have to learn, is that let us suppose this is hypothalamus, and attaching with hypothalamus is pituitary gland, and pituitary gland is attached with hypothalamus by a special tube or a pipe. That tube is known as stalk. Now, the point of concern here is that hypothalamus is drained by superior and inferior arteries. These arteries, when innervate the hypothalamus, they divide there into arterioles in this fashion. Bilkul in this fashion. Arterioles divide into capillaries, capillaries unite to form venulus, venulus unite to form vein, and ऐसे ही मैंने यहाँ पर भी ड्रा किया. क्या होना चाहिए था? फिर ये वेन ब्लड को वापस लेना चाहिए था towards the heart, but some veins do not take blood directly to the heart. What happens is that some veins take blood to different structures of body. Here these veins, this is a vein, this is a vein. These veins do not take blood directly to the heart, but they take blood to our pituitary gland. That too to our anterior lobe of pituitary gland. Now the point of concern is why? Because hypothalamus, our hypothalamus contains special types of neurosecretory cells. Neurosecretory cells. When we study hypothalamus, there I will tell you. Neurosecretory cells. Hypothalamus contains a special type of cells, those you call neurosecretory cells. Those neurosecretory cells produce special signaling molecules, or you may call them as hormones. These hormones are known as releasing factors and inhibiting factors. These hormones are known as releasing factors and inhibiting factors. Releasing hormones or inhibiting hormones. Yeah, releasing factors, inhibiting factors. Now, hypothalamus contains neurosecretory cells. These neurosecretory cells produce hormones. These hormones are known as releasing factors. Yeah, releasing hormones, yeah, inhibiting hormones. Both releasing hormones are also produced from hypothalamus, and inhibiting factors are also produced from hypothalamus. So these hormones are drained into the blood. These hormones are drained into the blood. When these hormones are drained into the blood, these are actually the hormones of hypothalamus, releasing factors and inhibiting factors. These hormones are actually released into the blood, and blood takes these hormones to the anterior lobe of pituitary gland. Blood takes these hormones to the anterior lobe of pituitary gland. Blood takes these hormones to the anterior lobe of pituitary gland, and then it is this anterior lobe of pituitary gland. It is this anterior lobe of pituitary gland that also contains endocrine cells. Sir, these endocrine cells get activated. When I say activated, I mean these endocrine cells get stimulated. When these endocrine cells get stimulated, endocrine cells of actually pituitary gland, anterior lobe of pituitary gland, then the pituitary gland produces hormones. Then the pituitary gland produces hormones. Likewise, I have told you, for example, hypothalamus produces one hormone. Hypothalamus contains neurosecretory cells. These neurosecretory cells produce one hormone. That hormone is known as gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH. Releasing factor or releasing hormone. Hypothalamus produces GnRH. It is this GnRH that is drained into the blood. It is the hypothalamic factor or hypothalamic hormone, and it is then blood takes it to the anterior lobe of your pituitary gland. Blood takes it to the anterior lobe of your pituitary gland. In the anterior lobe of pituitary gland, there are special endocrine cells. These endocrine cells get activated, and when these endocrine cells get activated due to this hormone, it is then these endocrine cells that produce its own hormones, and it is this pituitary gland or it is these endocrine cells that then produce, for example, follicle stimulating hormone FSH and LH. These are the hormones produced from the pituitary gland only after getting signal from the hypothalamus. So I told you that hypothalamus is connected with the pituitary gland. Firstly, by portal veins. For today, I will conclude the class because it is a lengthy class, and video becomes 4GB, 5GB or 6GB. That is beyond toleration, and I do not have data that too much. What happens is that I have special homework for you. People, please study at home. What do you mean by hypothalamic hypophyseal portal axis? This is the simplest homework for you people at home. This is for everybody, for offline batch as well as for online batch, and for everybody who is watching the video on YouTube. This is the homework. Hypothalamic hypophyseal portal axis. What do you mean by this term? You can search on the Google and comment on the link below in my lecture. We should stop here and we will continue tomorrow inshallah from here onwards. Hope you like the video. If you do not understand it, repeatedly watch it, you will get the concepts. Today I was having some flu symptoms, so the class was not up to the expectations. Hope you will understand. Stay home, stay safe, and do like, share and subscribe my channel. Assalamu alaikum.